What's up, Mosaic? My name is Michael Bartlett, and I'm coming at you from Frederick, Maryland, where my wife and I started a brand new church a few years ago called Collective. Now, if Collective Church sounds familiar to you, it's because we are one of the churches that Mosaic helped start. And if you follow them on social media, or even if you've been to the building, you've probably seen our logo before, maybe some pictures. In fact, at the beginning of COVID, the Mosaic staff reached out to us to figure out how your church can be praying for me as the pastor of the church and our church. And so you've probably prayed for our church. And I just want to say thank you for that. But not only for praying for us, but for everything Mosaic has done to help Collective be the church that it is. You see, if you give to Mosaic, if you serve at Mosaic, if you pray for Mosaic, you have impacted our church. So I just want to share a few things with you about how you all have helped us and helped God become a really big part of our city through Collective Church. A few weeks ago, we got to celebrate our 77th baptism as we baptized a young woman named Kayla. Now, Kayla had just moved to Frederick, and she was looking to start over. And she was talking to one of her neighbors, and her neighbor said, "Hey, you got to watch Collective." And so she started watching Collective online, and after a few weeks of it, she decided to take Jesus up on his offer for a fresh start and get baptized. And so the first time we ever met Kayla, we met her to baptize her. She'd never met the staff, she'd never seen us in person, but we got to celebrate that day with her, and it was absolutely amazing. Just last fall, we did a capital campaign where our church committed $340,000 so that we could move into our own space. And our hope and our prayer is that by the time we get to meet together again, we'll have a new home. We've seen marriages restored. We've seen addictions broken. We've seen people come back to faith in Jesus, and we couldn't have done any of this without you. And I can't brag enough about Mosaic and the staff and your lead pastor. Mosaic's team has invested in us for years, and we are a better church because of it. Carl has been pouring into me for 5 years. I'm a better leader and pastor because of him. In fact, everything I know about preaching is because of Carl. So I'm so honored to be with you all today in your homes. And just remember, if today bombs, it's really on Carl.
Hey, what's going on, Mosaic? It's me, Jonathan, and I've got some exciting news to share with you. You may not realize this, but over the last couple years, our student ministry has been growing and been thriving, and we've been seeing some incredible things. We're seeing young teens become leaders in our church. We even see some of them on stage. We've baptized a bunch of students here, and specifically, over the last 2 years, we have been praying and searching to find the person who would become our full-time student director to lead that ministry into the future. And so I'm excited to tell you today that we got him. He's here. His name's Jack. He's from Jersey, and we're so pumped to have him on the team.
Hey guys, if you're a student out there and a student only, we are looking for the students to come to our Monday night groups, and that's at mosaicchristian.org/students. It should be at the bottom here.
Right here.
All right, right there.
There you go.
So if you're a student, come on out. I want to meet you. I want to say hi. All our leaders want to say hi. If you're new and you haven't been there for the first time, just come on out, and we'll have a great time. We'll learn a lot of great things.
Absolutely. So again, if you're a student, go to mosaicchristian.org/students. Get ready to hang out on our Zoom call on Monday. Meet this guy. But other than that, let's get back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Today, we're continuing in your series called Battle Ready. And the context for this series is that Jesus is about to be arrested, tried, beaten, and executed on a cross. But before all of this takes place, Jesus has a moment with his 12 closest followers. And he uses this time to give them one last speech to equip them for the tough time that's coming up. Now, think of it as a pep talk. It's the locker room speech before the team goes out to play in the big game. It's the epic charge before the battle. Now, think of it like Aragorn in Lord of the Rings. A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship, but it is not this day. This day we fight, right? It's the scene in Independence Day before they rally to fight the aliens. We will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today we celebrate our Independence Day. It's William Wallace in Braveheart. Would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom? Or it's 300. Give them nothing, but take from them everything, right? Like it's epic. It gets you all amped up. Or One of my favorites. We're not goons. We're not bullies. No matter what people say or do, we have to be ourselves. And we're going to stick together. You know why? Because we're ducks, and ducks fly together. It's probably only inspiring to fellow 90s kids out there, but Iceland was a really tough team, and the Mighty Ducks had to get back to their roots in order to win. So what Jesus is doing is he's trying to get his apostles, right, the people that he's chosen to lead the church, he's trying to get them ready for battle. Because up until that point, Jesus has been with them, has been taking the lead, has been there to fix the problems that they'd run into. But Jesus knows that a time is coming when he will no longer be with them. And these are the words that Jesus gives them as they head into times of trouble. And we're going to pick it up today in the middle of this speech. And up until this part, Jesus has been encouraging them, telling them that if they continue to follow his lead, they'll change the world, telling them that he wants their joy to overflow. He's been telling them that he loves them. And then he hits the brakes really hard, and like really hard. So check out what Jesus says in John 15, starting in verse 18. If the world hates you, remember that it hated me first. The world would love you as one of its own if you belong to it, but you are no longer a part of the world. I chose you to come out of the world, so it hates you. And when Jesus uses the phrase the world, he's talking about people in the world, but he's also talking about the underlying system of how the world operates. Because Jesus operates in a way that the world doesn't understand and doesn't always agree with. Jesus continues, since they persecuted me, naturally they will persecute you. And if they had listened to me, they would listen to you. They will do all of this to you because of me, for they have rejected the one who sent me. So John writes about Jesus' perspective on the forthcoming reaction of the world to the disciples, to the church. It simply stated, it will parallel the world's reaction to Jesus. So if Christians think that the message of Jesus will generally be well received by the world, they're in for a big surprise. So here's the first thing I want to point out today, and I'd encourage you to write this down, take a screenshot, and remember this. And Jesus is trying to make this incredibly clear. Following Jesus isn't easy. Following Jesus isn't easy. And listen, I know what some of you are thinking. Who is this guy? Right? Carl brings in a guest speaker, and this is what he brings to the table. Where's Chuck Mingo? Hear me out, because this is so important to having an enduring and long-lasting faith. Following Jesus isn't easy. And here's the thing. Many of you have struggled in your faith or walked away from your faith years ago because no one ever told you that following Jesus would be hard, right? Nobody ever told you that following Jesus wouldn't be all rainbows and butterflies. Not your former pastor, not your grandma, not your friend who invited you to youth group for the first time and promised you pizza and cute Christian girls. And as you continued on your faith journey, you realized that there was some brokenness in your life that was impacting how much you trusted God, so you never felt as close to him as you expected. You realized there was some sin in your life that Jesus asked you to get rid of, but you weren't sure if you really wanted to change, so you carried the weight of that sin around for years. You realized that bad things still happen, and that made you question the goodness of God. You realized that your faith created tension when it comes to how you spend your money and your time, who you hang out with, who you date. Because the truth is, following Jesus isn't easy, and he never promises that it will be. So Jesus is warning his disciples, be ready because this is going to get hard. Because if you follow me, if you obey me, if you put me and my teaching first, people will hate you just like they hate me. And when you read in the biographies of Jesus, there were a lot of reasons why people hated him. Jealousy, guilt, confusion. To be honest, a lot of it was mob mentality and people just following the crowd. But story after story in the gospel shows that people hated Jesus the most because he was full of grace and truth. In John 1, Jesus says he came to earth full of grace and truth, equal amounts of both, equally important. And grace tells us that we can have endless second chances. Truth teaches us that following Jesus leads to a better life, and we need both, but the world doesn't understand either. You have to remember, during the time of Jesus, it was all about the law. It was all about the 600 plus rules in the Old Testament and attempting to follow those rules to perfection. In fact, religious leaders were put into place simply to enforce those rules. But then Jesus came along and taught it's about grace and truth. And they hated it. The world hated him for that. Right? Jesus sees a lame beggar at a pool and he heals him. Grace. Then Jesus tells him to stop sinning or something worse may happen to you. Truth. And the result is that religious leaders attempt to persecute Jesus for breaking the Sabbath which is a holy day of rest. You weren't supposed to work on the Sabbath, but they cared more about rules than they did about people. Jesus is put into a situation where a woman caught in adultery is brought before him by religious leaders. He says, "Whoever is without sin, cast the first stone." And when no one throws anything, Jesus says to the woman, "Where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you?" "No, Lord," she said. And Jesus says, "Neither do I." Grace. But then Jesus tells her, "Go and sin no more." Truth. Then the Pharisees challenged him. They questioned the authority he had to forgive this woman. Over and over again, Jesus offered forgiveness to lost and broken people, grace, then told them to stop living outside of alignment with God, truth. And the response from the world was to persecute him, to get him arrested, to crucify him, because people hated the fact that there's nothing you can do to make God love you more, and there's nothing you can do to make God love you less, and that Jesus teaches a better way to live. And when you choose to live this way, you will be hated. Right? People will hate you because of truth. And honestly, we know this. Sometimes we bring that on ourselves. We can be so convinced of truth that we forget grace, and we use truth as a hammer. Now, Peter, who's one of the people listening to this pep talk by Jesus, later writes multiple books of the Bible, and he tells us to tell people about Jesus. But then he says this in 1 Peter 3, "But do this in a gentle and respectful way. Keep your conscience clear. Then if people speak against you, they'll be ashamed when they see what a good life you live because you belong to Christ." Peter says, speak the truth, but don't be a jerk. Be gentle, be respectful. And understand that Jesus didn't come to earth to give you a bunch of rules, but to give you freedom, to give you hope, better relationships, a better marriage, a healthier approach to pain and brokenness. And that is what truth leads you to. But if we're being honest, we understand why people respond so negatively to truth. Right? No one wants to be told that they're living outside of alignment with God. No one wants to be told that they're missing the mark. But it isn't just truth that the world hates. The world hates grace as well. Now, one pastor says it like this: grace is so offensive that if you're not offended by it, you probably don't understand it. Now, grace is life-changing and life-giving. Grace is recklessly generous. Grace comes with no strings attached. Grace doesn't keep score. Grace is love that seeks people out when they have nothing to give in return. Grace is love freely given that has nothing to do with you. Grace is being loved when you're unlovable. Grace is unconditional acceptance given by an undeserving person, by an unobligated giver. It's one-way love. Grace is endless second chances. Grace is unfair, it's unrealistic, and it's unfathomable. And because of that, people will hate you. Right? They hate the fact that you live in grace because they don't think you deserve it. They'll hate that you offer grace because they don't understand it. People will hate you when you choose to live in grace, and people will hate you because you offer grace. I mean, that's why Jesus says, if the world hates you, remember that it hated me first. Now, if Jesus would have stopped there, like the world's going to hate you, they're going to persecute you, this is on me, I took you out of the world. If he would have ended there, it wouldn't have been the most inspiring way to end this part of his speech. When I was in high school, I played a few years of varsity baseball, and we were awful. Like, we won 5 games in the course of my entire high school career. We couldn't pitch, we couldn't hit, we couldn't field, kind of like the current Baltimore Orioles team. And listen, I'm an Orioles fan, I'm allowed to say that. I refused to jump off the bandwagon like all you Nationals fans out there. You won your World Series, whatever, move on. But we were terrible. And during my senior year, we were playing in a round-robin tournament with a bunch of teams from all over Northern Virginia. And most of the teams were a few levels above us in the competition, so we knew we were going to get smoked. And for the first game of the tournament, we were playing Westfield High School, whose best player was a guy named Brandon Snyder. Now, if you're an Orioles fan, a true Orioles fan, you would know that that name sounds familiar because he was their first-round pick in 2005. So about a year before he was getting drafted, our teams were facing off, and we were clearly outmatched. And our coach sat us all down before the game, and this is what he told us. I'll never forget it. We don't really have a chance to win, but at least you can say you played against Brandon Snyder. And that was it. It was the least inspiring coaching moment in the history of sports. And we promptly went out there and got 10-run ruled. But hey, at least I can say I played against Brandon Snyder. But that isn't what Jesus does. He doesn't tell them, hey, people are going to hate you because you follow me, so go out there and win one for the Gipper, right? Or people are going to hate you because you live in grace and truth, but at least you can tell people that you hung out with me. This isn't how he finishes that part of the speech. This is what he says in John 16. I have told you these things so that you won't abandon your faith, for you will be expelled from the synagogues, and the time is coming when those who kill you will think they are doing a holy service for God. This is because they have never known the Father or me. Yes, I'm telling you these things now so that when they happen, that's important, when they happen, not if they happen, so that when they happen, you will remember my warning. I didn't tell you earlier because I was going to be with you for a while longer. So Jesus is saying hard times are going to come, but don't give up. Don't walk away from your faith because of it. And so the second thing I want you to write down today or take a screenshot of is following Jesus will be hard, but don't give up. Don't give up. When you choose to live in grace and truth, the world will not understand. It will push back. It will try to tear you down. It will try to force you to live in a way that the world lives. It will hate you, but don't give up. When you are following Jesus and you realize that you're in a dating relationship that has no boundaries and no future, and you know what Jesus wants for you, so you honor God and break it off, don't give up. When they slide back into your DMs, don't give up on that either. When your boss asks you to lie on one of your accounts, but you refuse to do so because you know that isn't the right thing to do, and that leads to him passing you up for the next promotion, don't give up. When you choose to fight for your marriage, you seek out counseling that you need, but your friends tell you that you're making a mistake and that he doesn't deserve a second chance, don't give up. When you're ready to own your faith in Jesus and get baptized, but your parents push back because they had you go through some religious ceremony when you were a baby, and you don't understand why you have to make that decision for yourself today, don't give up. When you want to trust God with your finances, but that means canceling some of your Friday night plans, and your friends don't understand why you've changed, don't give up. When you choose to forgive your coworker who gossiped about you and extend them grace, and everyone else in the office thinks you're being a pushover, don't give up. Don't give up. Don't abandon your faith. Galatians 6 says, so let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. Now here's the last takeaway for today. Following Jesus will be hard, but don't give up because it's worth it. It is absolutely worth it. You see, the reason you can keep going when you face trials is because that is what Jesus did for you. Right after this speech, he faces the apex of his persecution when he's arrested and sent to be executed on a cross. But Jesus didn't give up. He was betrayed by one of the 12 listening to this speech because he chose the world over Jesus. But Jesus didn't give up. While Jesus is being arrested, his apostles run away in fear and abandon him. He didn't give up. He was put on trial in front of the high priest. He didn't give up. They spit on him, blindfolded him, beat him, and humiliated him. He didn't give up. He overheard his closest friends say, I don't even know who he is. He didn't give up. They whipped him. He didn't give up. The crowds mocked him. He didn't give up. They put a cross on his back. They drove nails into his wrists and feet, and he died. But he did not give up. He rose from the dead. He proved forever that he is the Son of God, that he's the Savior of the world, that he's the one who will give us endless second chances and give us a life better than one we could ever create on our own. He didn't give up on going to the cross, which means he didn't give up on you. And the best thing is he won't ever give up on you. Jesus values you. He gave everything, including his own life, so that you could have a relationship with God and experience the grace and truth that he has to offer. So in those moments when following Jesus isn't easy, you can keep pushing and you can keep going because Jesus loves you and gave up his own life for you. And when you face trials, which you will, when your faith doesn't make sense to the people around you, when you're hated by the world, you can keep going because the love of Christ is greater than anything that the world has to offer. So for those of you who are watching this morning, who are on the fence about this whole Jesus thing, Jesus promises that following him will not be easy, but that following him is worth it. Because following him means having life to the fullest. Following him means living in the unfathomable and unending grace. And we want you to know today that there is a gift of grace available that is free because Jesus didn't give up going to the cross and rising from the grave for you, to have a relationship with you so that you could experience peace, so that you could experience hope, so that you could experience unconditional love, so that you could be free because he loves you that much. So what are you waiting for? whatever is standing in your way of putting your faith in him, whatever fear you have of how the world will respond, don't let that stop you from saying yes to the freedom that Jesus offers, because it's worth it. And if you are ready to take that step, or just want to talk to someone about what that means for you, check the baptism box on your connection card, and someone will call you this week and walk with you as you take that next step. Now, if you've already accepted that free gift of grace, be reminded that when you face tough seasons in your faith, don't give up. And though living in grace and truth will lead to hatred from the world, it is that same grace and truth that sets you free. It's the same grace and truth that will get you through this season of your life. It is that same grace and truth that allows broken people like you and me the opportunity to have a relationship with God who loves us. It won't be easy, but it's absolutely worth it. Let's pray. God, thank you so much that you're with us. God, because we're facing tough times right now. God, we're struggling in our faith. We're wondering how much further we can keep going, how much longer we can last. But God, we're thankful that we know that we don't need to give up because of what you did for us. God, the fact that you love us so much that you sent your son to live a perfect life to die for us so that we could have a relationship with you. So God, I just pray for everybody that's listening today, that's going to watch it this week, who is struggling in their faith, who's wondering what's going on. God, I pray that they feel your presence this week. God, I pray that they seek you out more this week. God, I pray that no matter what trial people are going through, they know that you are with them. God, we're thankful that we don't have to do this alone. God, help us have the courage to not give up when things get tough. God, we love you and pray these things in your name. Amen.
Hey Mosaic, my name is Amanda, and right now I want to invite you to just be still for a minute. We know that as you're watching the broadcast, 9 times out of 10, you're watching it while you're working out, while you're working, while you're wrangling kids. But right now, I just want you to take a moment and be still, because we're about to do something really important. We're about to celebrate communion. And communion is a time when we remember what Jesus did for us on the cross. It's just like Michael said in the sermon, that because he didn't give up on us, because he saw you and me as worth it, we can live lives full of meaning. And so right now I want you to grab whatever you can get your hands on, and we're going to celebrate communion. And so grab your cracker, your bread, and remember that Christ's body was broken for you. Now grab your juice, your water, and remember that Jesus shed his blood so that we could live life to the fullest.
I'm blameless in your sight. My history rewritten. My past embraced. My sin forgiven. I'm blameless in your sight. My history rewritten. 'Cause you delight in showing mercy, and mercy triumphs over judgment. I know that you delight in showing mercy, and mercy triumphs over judgment. Oh, like a great love, fear cannot be found in you, and there will never be a day when you're uncertain of the ones you choose. Yeah.
Hey Mosaic, I want to give a big thank you to Pastor Michael for today's message because he's right. It's not the time to give up. It's the time to love each other and love our community now more than ever. And we can do that because it's Impact Week! We are so excited for Impact Week, you guys. We plan on blitzing the entire community with practical acts of love this week. Over the next 7 days, Mosaic is gonna partner with a variety of organizations all across the state of Maryland so that we can show the hope of Jesus to some hurting people. And I know you're dying to know how you can sign up for Impact Week. Head on over to mosaicchristian.org/IW20, and on that page, you will see a wide variety of activities that you can be a part of, whether it's in person or from the safety of your home. We get it. It's not gonna be the same Impact Week that we normally have. However, that doesn't stop us being a community. We are going to blow up Mosaic's Instagram this week. Whenever you're out doing an activity for Impact Week, use the tags and handles on the screen and tag Mosaic so that we can show the world how we as a church are loving Maryland now more than ever. That's it for me. I'm signing off and I'm heading out to my first Impact Week. I'm super excited. Bye guys.